Hello, Cinemaster lovers. Welcome back. I hope you're ready for an exciting experience because we've got something special for you today. Get comfortable, grab your snacks, and let's dive right into the action. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Let's get started. Our film begins with a story told by a man named Ambrosius. He tells us about the sword of King Caesar and how, when he died, his sword was passed to King Tiberius. But King Tiberius feared that the sword might fall into the hands of someone who would use it for evil, as the sword was very sacred and imbued with magical power used for good. When Tiberius died, he hid the sword in one of his castles and bound it with a magical symbol to prevent it from being used for evil. Ambrosius, who knew the truth about the sword, fled from Britain and lived in Rome to deliver the sword to the rightful king. We then move to a child named Romulus, who sees Aurelius, the Roman army commander, being summoned from Africa to protect the new Caesar who will rule Rome. The child sees him entering his tent and is very impressed with his sword. He enters Aurelius's tent and holds his sword, but Aurelius sees him and calls one of his guards named Batiatus, ordering him to take Romulus and cut off his hand for attempting to steal the sword. Batiatus takes Romulus and throws him into a fountain, holding his hand to cut it off. Romulus tells Aurelius that he admires his sword and was not trying to steal it, so Aurelius orders Batiatus to let the child go. Then the magician Ambrosius arrives and blames Aurelius for what he did to the child, mocking him. One of Aurelius's soldiers, named Demetrius, attempts to hit him, but Ambrosius throws him into the fountain, astonishing everyone with his power. Aurelius sees a mark on Ambrosius's chest, the same mark on the sword's placement, and leaves with Romulus, returning to the royal palace. We learn that Romulus is the son of King Orestes, and Ambrosius is his teacher. Romulus sees the barbarian ruler Odoacer with Orestes, who demands half of Rome in exchange for the services he will provide. Odoacer's army commander Tetrarch sees Romulus listening to them, and Orestes refuses Odoacer's demands and expels him. Later, Orestes scolds Ambrosius, thinking he took Romulus out of the palace, but Ambrosius does not reveal the truth, saying they were just walking outside the palace. Orestes is very worried about Romulus, as he's about to announce him as the new Caesar of Rome and the legitimate heir to the throne. Romulus goes to his mother, afraid of dying like the rulers who were killed before, and she tells him that his father has appointed guards to protect him. Later, they announce Romulus as the ruler of Rome and the legitimate heir to the throne. He meets Aurelius at the coronation, and Aurelius is surprised that the child whose hand he almost cut off is the Caesar he is meant to protect. They announce him as the new Caesar of Rome. Orestes then expels Ambrosius from the palace, telling him Romulus no longer needs him. Romulus goes to meet Aurelius, not telling his father that Aurelius almost cut off his hand. He takes the sword from Aurelius and makes him promise to protect him. We return to Ambrosius, who is leaving the palace, mocked by Aurelius's soldiers. Aurelius asks him about the mark on his chest, and Ambrosius recalls what happened to him, revealing that a masked man placed the mark on his chest, but he does not tell the truth and leaves. Aurelius meets his friend Nestor, a member of the Roman Senate. Then, there is an attack on the royal palace by Odoacer's army. They break the gate with a battering ram and enter the palace. Aurelius and his soldiers try to protect the king and his family, but Tetrarch hits him on the head, knocking him unconscious. Orestes defends his son and wife, but Tetrarch strikes him in the chest with an axe, killing him. He is about to strike Romulus with a spear, but his mother stands in front of him, and the spear hits her, killing her. Romulus runs inside the palace, and Tetrarch chases him, but Romulus takes a dagger from Tetrarch's pocket, stabs him in the leg, and escapes, taking his crown and hiding in a tree. Tetrarch searches for him, finds the crown under the tree, and sees Romulus hiding. Aurelius wakes up to find Odoacer's soldiers have set the palace and all of Rome on fire. Meanwhile, the commander of the Constantinople army, Sidonius, meets Odoacer, who tells him to inform his ruler that he is now the new ruler of Rome. We return to Aurelius, who goes to Nestor, telling him that the king and his wife are dead, and he does not know if Romulus is alive or dead. Nestor tells him he knows what happened, and that Odoacer's soldiers have taken his soldiers as prisoners and will kill them. We go to Tetrarch, who takes Romulus to Odoacer. Odoacer orders him to execute Romulus, but Ambrosius intervenes before they do, with his bird. He tells Odoacer that if he executes Romulus, the people will revolt against him, making Romulus a popular hero, and a curse will befall him, leading the people to kill him. Odoacer fears this and reverses his decision to kill Romulus. Tetrarch objects to Odoacer's decision, so Odoacer cuts off his finger for objecting and orders him to guard Romulus, threatening to kill him if anything happens to Romulus, and orders Ambracinus to be imprisoned with him. We return to Aurelius, who meets Sidonius, the commander of the Constantinople army. He tells him he saw Romulus captured by Odoacer and asks him to go and rescue him, saying the king of Constantinople is waiting for him to take him, protect him, and restore his rule. But Aurelius decides to rescue his soldiers first, as he needs them to save Romulus. Sidonius sends his personal guard with him to help, and the soldier wears a mask. Aurelius arrives before Odoacer's soldiers kill his soldiers, telling them that the soldier with him is a captive from the king's army, and he is there to hand him over. The soldier strikes Aurelius and runs, and the soldiers chase him, but he frees his soldiers and they run to help the soldier before he is killed. They find the soldier fighting Odoacer's soldiers and killing them all, amazed by the soldier's strength. Meanwhile, Tetrarch takes the Caesar and Ambracinus to Tiberius's castle by the sea. We return to Aurelius, who wakes up to find the soldier who was with him missing. He sees a girl emerging from the river and realizes the soldier was this girl, surprised by her strength and courage. Her name is Mira, and she tells him she knows where Romulus is. They take a boat and sail across the sea. We return to Romulus, and Ambracinus tells him about the kings who ruled before him, saying that the castle they are in was built by King Tiberius, the last one who had Caesar's sword. Tetrarch gives Romulus water to drink and mocks him, so Romulus throws the water in his face. Fetatirius got angry, and Hermia was on top of the castle, but Ambrosinius told him if he killed Romulus, Odoacer would kill him. Fetatirius got angry and he was going to throw him from the top of the castle, but Ambrosinius told him if he killed Romulus, Odoacer would kill him. So Fetatirius got angry and brought him down and left his soldiers on Ambrosinius's cat. Meanwhile, Aurelius and his soldiers arrive at the castle. We return to Ambrosinius, who is hanging, and he sees the same mark on his chest in the castle. He realized that Tiberius left the sword in this castle, and he called Romulus and had him go to the mark. He stood in front of Tiberius's picture, and when Romulus touched the picture, he fell into a crypt. He walked through the crypt until he reached Tiberius's statue with the sword on it and a plaque under the sword with a prophecy written on it. The prophecy states that whoever wields this sword will rule Rome, and that the sword was made in Britain. So he takes the sword from the statue. We go to Aurelius, who is climbing the castle wall with Mira. The rope hook moved from its place, and they were about to fall into the sea, but Ambrosinius saw them. As they were about to fall with the rope, he swung on the rope until he caught them with his foot on a statue, freed his hand, hung the statue in its place, and hit the guard who was sleeping. One of the soldiers saw the rope and went to untie it from the wall, but Ambrosinius hit him and held the rope for Aurelius and Mira until they climbed up and asked Aurelius to go down and get Romulus from the castle below. Meanwhile, Romulus took the sword and went to kill Titarius while he was sleeping, but Titarius woke up before Romulus could kill him. He started chasing Romulus, and at that time the soldiers surrounded Mira to kill her, but she fought them all and killed them one by one, finishing them off. We returned to the Caesar, and one of the soldiers caught him and was about to kill him, but Aurelius killed the soldiers before they could kill Romulus. Titarius attacked them and hit Aurelius, causing him to drop his sword, but Aurelius hit him with an axe on his head, injuring him and making him run. We go to Aurelius's soldiers, who kill the soldiers on the castle roof. Mira is seen fighting the soldiers, and everyone is amazed by her strength. Afterward, they enter the castle and meet Aurelius and Romulus. Aurelius closed the door and had them all go down a well underground, staying behind the door until they went down and exited the crypt. Mira returns to Aurelius, but Titarius gathers all the soldiers in the castle and attacks them, so they jump off the castle into the sea and escape. Afterward, Aurelius takes Romulus and returns him to Nestor and Sodarius. Winster told Aurelius that the ruler of Constantinople reneged on his agreement and would not take Romulus to protect him. He also told him that he made an agreement with Odoacer and that the senator agreed with Odoacer to hand over Rome. He asked him to hand over Romulus to Siderius, but Aurelius refused to hand over Romulus. As he was leaving the tent, Siderius's soldiers shot arrows at him, but he hid behind the table. The soldiers saw Romulus leaving the tent and aimed the arrows at him to shoot him, but a soldier named Vitrinius stood in front of Romulus, and all the arrows hit him. Aurelius set fire to the soldiers who were shooting arrows, and Demetrius and Batiatus killed the remaining soldiers. Aurelius ran to see Vitrinius and found him dead. He saw Nestor escaping, so he chased and killed him. Siderius saw him killing him, so he took an arrow and shot Aurelius, but Mira saved him and killed her leader, Siderius, saving Aurelius. After that, Aurelius decided to go to Britain to the 9th Legion of the Roman army. He told Mira, "You are now free, and you can leave," but she refused and said, "I will continue with you and go to Britain." So Aurelius moved with the soldiers and Romilius, heading to Britain. At the time Aurelius arrived in Britain, Titurius also arrived in Britain with his soldiers. We return to Aurelius, who reaches the camp of the 9th Legion in Britain, but he finds the camp burned and all the soldiers killed. Ambrosinius told Aurelius that the one who did this was someone named Vortigern, and this was the masked man searching for the Caesar's sword to fulfill the prophecy and take control of Rome. He was the one who put the mark on Ambrosinius's chest and kept chasing Ambrosinius until he escaped from Rome. After that, Aurelius reaches Hadrian's castle, which is on the wall separating northern and southern Britain, and finds the castle empty with no guards. He loses hope, and his soldiers realize they have traveled all this distance only to find no 9th Legion. But they meet someone who asks them what they are doing there. Aurelius tells him they are looking for the leader of the 9th Legion. He replies, "I am Flavius, leader of the 9th Legion." Aurelius is surprised, and Flavius tells him that when Rome stopped sending them supplies and weapons, Vortigern and his soldiers defeated them, but left them alive in Britain with no weapons and took them. And this is the tribe he lives with. Meanwhile, Titurius goes to meet Vortigern and asks him to help find Romilius, telling him that he is in Britain with the Caesar's sword. Vortigern is surprised and realizes that Ambrosinius has reached the sword and returned to Britain with the new ruler of Rome. He agrees with Titurius that he will bring him the boy in exchange for the sword. Titurius agrees. Then we go to Ambrosinius, who is teaching the tribe's children and explaining the truth about the sword. He tells them that the sword always stands for justice and goodness and should not fall into the hands of evil. Afterward, he takes Romilius and shows him the place where the sword was made and tells him what happened to him. He tells him that Vortigern kept torturing him to find the sword, but he refused to tell him and managed to escape to Rome. Later, a girl from the tribe is walking in the forest, and Vortigern meets her and tells her to inform Flavius to hand over the boy in the tribe and the sword with him, and also to hand over Ambrosinius. He kills the girl's family and sends them to the tribe. The girl returns to the tribe screaming and tells them what happened. She tells Flavius that Vortigern asked him to send Romilius, the sword, and Ambrosinius. Flavius and the tribe ask Aurelius to take his soldiers, Romilius, and leave the tribe, fearing that Vortigern will attack and kill them. Aurelius tells them he will leave and go to Hadrian's castle on the wall to fight Vortigern with his soldiers. He is joined by someone named Proteus and 20 soldiers. After that, Aurelius prepares with his soldiers to fight Vortigern, and Aurelius gives him his sword to fight with. Then Vortigern and his soldiers arrive at the castle, along with Titurius and his soldiers. As they approach Hadrian's castle, Aurelius and his soldiers shoot arrows at them, and Ambrosinius uses his magical powers to throw fireballs at them. But Vortigern's soldiers reach the castle and climb the wall, and Aurelius and his soldiers kill the soldiers climbing up. The soldiers of Vortigern break down the castle gate and attack Aurelius and his soldiers, killing the soldiers coming up. Vortigern's soldiers break down the castle gate and attack Aurelius and his soldiers. We go to Demetrius, who pushes the ladder the soldiers are climbing, and he falls from the wall unconscious. Bataeus jumps after him to protect him, but one of the soldiers shoots him in the leg, and Tetrius throws a spear into his chest, killing him. Demetrius wakes up to find Bataeus killed. We return to Romilius, who climbs down from the castle wall and hides behind a rock. At this time, Aurelius's soldiers lose hope and surrender, knowing they will all die. But Flavius arrives with his soldiers, joins Aurelius's army, boosts their morale, and attacks Mira, one of Tetrius's soldiers, knocking her sword away and striking her. But Mira strikes him and stabs a dagger into his neck. At this time, Ambrosinius goes to the place where the sword was made and tries to use a power greater than magic to kill Vortigern and his soldiers. But Vortigern attacks him and strikes him. Ambrosinius removes the mask from Vortigern's face, strikes him, and pushes him into the burning tree, thus killing Vortigern. We return to Romilius, who sees Tetrius hiding behind the rock, so he runs after him. Romilius tries to run from him, but Aurelius sees him, runs, and knocks Tetrius off the horse, and Aurelius's sword falls from his hand. Tetrius finds the sword next to him, grabs it, and duels Aurelius, breaking the sword in his hand. Aurelius wounds him in the hand, and the sword falls from him. Tetrius grabs the axe, strikes him with it, and knocks him to the ground, intending to kill him. Romilius grabs his sword and kills Tetrius, avenging his father and mother, and saves Aurelius. Thus, he defeats Vortigern's army and restores Roman control over Britain. But Romilius frees all the soldiers with him, telling them he will live in Britain without wars or conflicts, and throws his sword into the rock. Later, Aurelius and Mira marry, and a long time passes. Romilius marries and has a child named Arthur. Ambrosinius tells him the heroic tales of his father Romilius and the legend of the sacred sword, and the film ends like this.